Welcome to EFT Nation, your home for all things tapping. For show notes and resources, please visit EFTTappingTraining.com. We are your tapping hosts. I'm Alina Frank.
And I'm Craig Wiener. The information provided in this podcast is not a substitute for counseling or medical advice. The information presented here is meant to inspire and educate listeners, but are not guarantees of any kind.
So, you remember when you were a kid and you had a pop quiz and there was a test and how nervous you would get? Like, even if you knew it, like...
Absolutely. Are you kidding? Or being called on? I mean, the being called on to answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I know that when I worked one-on-one with clients, I used to work on like things like test anxiety and being worried about a test or being graded for, you know...
Especially with that population that was going through school and university or grad school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a surprise to me that new practitioners or practitioners in training in EFT often do not do additional testing. It's almost like once they get close to a 0 in the SUDS or the client says, I feel better, then they're like, oh, goody, we're done. And there's a little hesitation and worry about doing additional testing, which is, to me, like the mark of a real skillful practitioner.
Can we back up for a second and talk about testing for those that are maybe wondering or use a different language?
Sure.
Right. So what I want to say is when we're doing EFT with a client, we're trying to get a gauge of how they're doing with the intensity of the nervousness or the anxiety or the anger or whatever it is that we're working on, right? So the way, and you can't assume because one person, looks completely okay, but inside when they tell you how intense it is, it's much more than you think, or sometimes reverse. So the most common form of what we call testing or measuring, calibrating how somebody is doing in relationship to the work is what we call the 0 to 10 or SUDS testing.
Subjective units of distress.
Exactly.
And it's subjective.
Right, it is. It's whatever the person says. From 0 to 10, how angry about that thing you're feeling right now.
Right.
3, 9, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's their scale. You don't say, wow, you don't look like a 9. Right? I mean, that's
Right.
their relationship to the intensity of what they're feeling.
Yes.
Right? Or the physical sensation if we're working on that. So that's like the first level of testing. And I always say it's usually, like for me, an emotional pulse check. Mm-hmm. Right? So if we're going to do a cardiovascular exam, the first thing that I might just check is your pulse. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. And so that's a starting place. But it isn't really thorough. It's not, you don't just stop a heart exam with checking the pulse. You keep looking. Now, why do we do, what is additional testing and why do we do it? Additional testing, for first, I want to say maybe there are practitioners out there that aren't even doing SUDS. And the person says, oh, I'm feeling better, and they move on to the next thing.
Right.
And I just think that that's not nearly as thorough as it could be. It's easier on one hand because it's like, oh, okay, good, that's a little better, let's move on. Because otherwise I might feel pressure about really trying to support them in resolving it completely. Mm-hmm. So sometimes...
I think there's a concern that, I'm bugging my client.
Yeah, there's that too.
Right, and I think it all goes back to the way that you pre-frame these things. Right. If you say, look, my job is to get this so that you don't feel it at all. I wouldn't be doing my job if I just left you hanging there and then the whole thing would come back to you and you'd feel the same way or just slightly better about it. I want this to be resolved. And the way that I do that is I do some checking in and that's, the first level is the SUDS, 0 to 10.
Yep.
And, when I was trained by Gary Craig, I was told, if the person can't give you a 0 to 10, then have them just guess. And sometimes then the pressure is off the client to get the number just right. And so you feel more comfortable just having them guess because it really is subjective.
Right. So that's like the first level. So let's just say that you're working on...
fear of tests.
Okay, got it. So you have an entrance exam coming up or whatever it is for school.
Yes.
And you're having you imagine taking this upcoming exam. Mm-hmm. And I ask you how you're feeling about it. And you tell me...
I'm nervous.
You're nervous. Great. And I ask you where you feel that. And we tap on your nervousness, 0 to 10. Where are you right now? Tap, 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 tap. how's your SUDS doing now? How nervous are you now?
Right.
Maybe it came down from an 8 to a 6 to a 4. Then let's just say it gets down to the point
I'm feeling better.
You're feeling better.
Feeling
Great.
better.
Now, we could just move on, or I could say, beside nervous, is there anything else that you're feeling about the exam? I could just ask that.
Right. Or
And
what part of taking the exam are you nervous about?
Exactly.
To get more specific.
And you might tell me.
That I'm going to fail again.
Got it. So now we have a choice to either tap there or to ask about that other event that she's referring to again.
Right.
So let's just say now that we tap her again, a round or 2 or 3, on her concern that she's going to fail again, the fear. Okay.
Yep.
And let's just say that we do maybe even one other aspect, right? And like maybe she's doing it, having to do it at a school that she hates being back in or whatever. So we tap several aspects around this upcoming test.
Or a different emotion around
Exactly.
it.
Yep. And then you tell me what? It's clear?
I feel
good?
I feel good. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I'm feeling a lot better than I was at the beginning.
Yeah, and we got all that SUDS down really low. We got it down to basically.
Let's say I say a 0.
It's a 0.
I think it's a 0. I'm feeling better.
0, maybe even a little bit of a 1, because sometimes people think, I can't say 0.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, we can either leave that and go, great, let's go on to something else, or we can do some thorough additional testing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what would that testing be for if they're already saying they're a 0? The purpose of that additional testing is to see what else might still be there that we haven't flushed out or worked on yet that might be an important aspect that may show up when they actually have the exam. So why not stay here a little bit longer, linger, test it, see if there's something else hiding or maybe in the shadows that we can bring out.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, additional testing is basically ways to get as close to the real life thing as possible.
Yeah.
So, the most common, and, we can't have her in, while we're having a session, go to the school, see the exam, take the exam, and all. So we can't do that yet, right? I don't have the ability to do that. But I could, and this is a pretty common one, have her close her eyes
and vividly imagine.
Really tune in. Go ahead and close your eyes and vividly imagine is what we call it, is to walk into the school, sit down at the desk, take the, and to go through in her mind's eye all the aspects and see if there's anything about that still triggers you, annoys you, bothers you, brings up fear. And in that pause and slow revisiting, maybe like, oh, that's interesting. And I say, what? And she says,
I think it's that I'm concerned that I'm gonna not be able to get to the school on time. I'll hit some traffic or something.
Okay. All right. So another aspect came up. Great. That's wonderful. That's not a disappointment. That's saying, okay, that thing is already there.
Yeah.
Let's tap on that aspect.
Yeah, because it's the way that I failed the last time, is I wasn't able to get there on time.
And now we also have a daisy chaining event to go to after we finish this one. But
yeah.
So
you follow it.
Or we follow it, and then we can come back and check on this one.
So I think with testing, it's really it's another useful skill to learn. Imperative skill to learn as an EFT practitioner is time management.
Right.
So as you're doing this work, you need to be aware of, I only have 10 minutes left. I need to go back to what it was I was tapping on originally and make sure that I thoroughly check and test those pieces that I left behind as I followed the daisy chain or followed the different aspects.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So that's
one way.
That's one way. So far we have SUDS. Additional testing method is vividly imagine. Let's talk about some of the most common other ones. So one that I like to do is role play.
I love this one.
Role play.
When do you use it? Well, there has to be another person.
It has to be, yes. It's something having to do like a conversation with another person, or the other person said something that was really triggering, and that's the scene or the event that we were working on.
Okay, so let's just say that I was working on a scene with the person at the cashier that made a really inappropriate comment to me at the store the other day.
What was the comment that we were working on?
The comment let's just say it was a political comment that was really inappropriate based on a shirt I was wearing.
Okay.
We'll just call it the political comment.
Okay. Well, no, let's just call it let's just say that your shirt, because we want to make this real. Let's say that your shirt said woke hipster.
Okay. Fine.
And the cashier said, "Oh yeah, right," like that. Okay. And so he's saying that the suds is a 0.
Because we worked on my anger and my annoyance. But now, you know what? It is what it is. Maybe he was having a bad... I don't know. But you know what? It has nothing to do with me. That's his stuff.
Okay. So then I would ask, well, can you repeat the line again? And then I would have Craig say that, which is another additional testing method. But I could also say... Oh, so it was that kind of, what was the tone of voice? Oh yeah, it was like really snarky, sarcastic. So then I would say, okay, I'm going to test you now. And I would do the role play and I would say, oh yeah, right.
And so you would play the other person that was the source of the anger and annoyance.
So here, I want to back up and say something. So we have very gentle sorts of testing. And then
vividly imagine.
Like vividly imagine. Again, this is additional. This is once you get to a 0 or as close to a 0 as you can. So suds and guessing and vividly imagine. All pretty easy peasy, not provocative, what we would call gentle testing. The more provocative your testing method, the more you really do have to pre-frame that you're going to test. I think that's just safeguarding your client. It's just polite. It's not going to throw them out of, you're not going to throw it out of left field and make some kind of wisecrack that's going to leave your client upset that you did that.
So how might you pre-frame that before you do deeper testing?
Great. So you're saying you're a 0 with that conversation.
Yep.
But
I'm good.
But it had such an impact on you that
it was you.
Yeah.
I'm feeling so much better than I was before because it was hard to think about anything else.
So I just want to do some additional testing. Is that okay?
What do you mean?
I'm gonna do some testing to see if there's anything left. Is that okay?
No, it's good. Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. I feel good.
All right, because I would be doing you a disservice if I just kind of left it hanging. I really want to make sure it's at a 0.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah, right.
Oh. It's actually kind of funny. I mean, he actually had kind of like his face was kind of stupid. It was, whatever.
All right. So that's what we would do. We would pre-frame, and then we would do role-playing. So let's talk about some other additional testing methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another one that you might want to say, let's just say that you're working on a limiting belief. Right? And somebody's working on issues around, and you've worked maybe the last 2 sessions on feeling not smart enough.
Okay.
And so one of the things that you heard them say during the issue is like, I've always been a slow thinker, or I've always been stupid, or you've heard that's kind of the belief that you heard them say about themselves multiple times.
And you've worked on it.
And you've been working on it for a couple sessions, and it's feeling like, no, I'm thinking that I feel way more at peace with it now. Right. So
you can say, well, okay, I want you to really say that statement again and see how you're feeling now. So it's called Say This. Basically, testing method is called Say This.
Which one? I'm slow. I'm stupid.
Yeah, say them both.
Yeah, I'm slow. I'm stupid. It just sounds ridiculous because to be honest, I got 3 graduate degrees.
Okay.
Right. So that's just I get a part of me used to feel that way.
Okay.
But
yes,
no, that's not true. That's not resonant at all.
Right. So I say that this is another kind of on the more gentle side of testing. Okay, so let's get into ones like the props. So a prop would be, for example, if you have a client you're working with that has a particular phobia of, let's say, a snake. If you were to bring out a rubber snake, if you have in your office a real snake, if you were to have a video or a picture of a snake. So again, I want to underscore and bold the idea that this is additional testing. additional testing. So you're not going to throw this out in the very first round of like, oh, now you say you're a 0, I'm going to just whip out a snake. No. So you ask, you again pre-frame. So now, how comfortable do you feel with me actually showing you a still picture of a snake?
Right.
Then you might, or you would start with vividly imagine. And then they say it's okay. Then a still picture, then a video, then next. So those are props.
So this is kind of basically a form of gentle exposure, isn't it? I mean,
Well,
really, in a
it's testing.
sense.
It's
right.
not.
Well, it's a way
right.
of, for example, getting them closer and closer and kind of calibrating. Okay, if I talk about it, are you still okay?
Right.
If I have you look at a still picture, are you still okay? If I have you watch a video of it,
Right.
are you still okay? I mean, we haven't gotten to the point that they're holding a snake.
And I would say that this is the trauma-informed way of going about testing. Instead of like, here, wham, bam, I'm going to just fling a snake at you.
You don't surprise them.
No. So okay, then we're setting them up for the best test, which the best test is always the actual situation. So you might even go so far as have them go to a pet shop and see a snake, but the real test was always when they were hiking with their friends. They always came across a snake in the trail. They would freak out. They wouldn't sleep when they were backpacking with their friends for the whole weekend because they came across a snake. Now, the best test is going to be, okay, when are you going to do that? And imagine yourself going through that weekend and you come across a snake. How does that feel? So that's kind of like make it up in the future testing. But the ultimate test will be when they're actually on that backpacking trip and they report back to you.
And you got to let them know that if they get triggered at all still,
Yes.
it's not that EFT is not working.
Yes.
It's that obviously there's some other aspect that came up to do some work on.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to do preemptively,
Yes.
preventatively, by doing all this testing.
Yes.
I didn't want to forget, because you had mentioned it, what if you worked on a particularly difficult or emotionally challenging event, and let's just say they had come in and they had told you about a bunch of them, and you worked on 1 or 2 or 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could you test them by having them imagine the other events you didn't tap on?
No, yes, because you'll hear them say, oh, yeah, the whole thing's gone. Like I
the
don't
generalization effect across
Yes.
other ones.
Yes.
Okay. And for those that, we'll say on the leading edge of provocativeness, might be something where you really challenge somebody.
Right.
With
Like
with
triggering.
the statement, this is like the last thing I would ever do
Yeah.
as a last form of testing, but I will say
So it's
that
kind of called triggering statements and
Yeah.
provocative questions.
and for me, what the result of real thorough testing is the kind of confidence that a person feels when they laugh at something that used to be triggering, and they just really feel like, wow, this really is done. But on that edge of provocativeness, with the right person, with the right rapport, in the right circumstance, might look something like,
How does it feel to be a loser?
okay, how does it feel to never, that you're going to be the one to never get married or
Yeah.
be in a relationship or whatever
Well,
it is.
Yeah, or wow, that was pretty stupid of you.
Right.
So again, the more provocative you go with these testing methods, the more you've really got to pre-frame your client, warn them that you're doing this. I mean, that's just us and being trauma informed, but you'll see people doing all kinds of stuff out there, and then they're prepared for what you're doing because they know it's because you're doing this in service of the work, in service of them healing, not because you just want to trigger them. And note, as Craig said, I just again underscore and really bold this, that there are going to be clients that kind of, shenanigans is not going to fly. It's not, no matter, it's just not. They're sensitive people. They're not going to take it as a joke. And so this is where you really got to know your client. You're not going to do that in a first session because you're just getting to know your client.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just as a summary,
Yes.
then the whole purpose of additional testing is to do everything you can to be as thorough as you can to work out as many aspects as possible so that in real life, when they encounter the subject of their concern.
Yeah.
You've done everything you can to prepare them for that so that the likelihood of them succeeding is enhanced.
Yeah.
And that's the reasoning and the explanation that you also offer. And I'll be honest, in my mentees that are becoming certified, etc., the more confident and less discomfort they have with testing, the greater their results.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And you'll also be able to see out there, like, who's claiming that they have a one-session miracle when they haven't done real testing, right? Yep, great episode. And this is episode number 49. We're going to have to come up with something for this milestone when we hit 50. We'll see what contest we can come up with. But again, thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for joining us today at EFT Nation. And remember that you can find show notes and previous episodes at EFTTappingtraining.com.